what's good? This is Valiant. You're watching MPC. Big up Ringz Ov Saturn. With regards to background, I started making beats when I was about 16 or 17. So this was like GCSE years. I was supposed to go to one of my boys' houses to study, when in actual fact I went there for the whole night to just learn how to make beats. He showed me the ropes completely from start to finish on Fruityloops, which is what I started on. So from basic drum loops, how to create them, to adding synths to your tracks and bass lines, and then also how to chop up samples. I got shown that night, and it was a really productive night because obviously we made beats together, and I learned quite a lot. The fact that I felt I was quite instrumental in making those beats, because I was like quite creative. I was like, put this here and put that there, sort of thing. It dawned on me that I needed to try and do this myself. Not long after that, I went to Bangladesh, where one of my cousins, who's quite established in the rock scene out in Bangladesh, he had a cracked version of Fruityloops. So grabbed a copy of that and took that back home with me. Shortly after that, I just started learning the ropes and started making beats myself, and it started from there really. Musical influences, definitely I would say, if I look back to when I was first listening to hip hop, people like the Fugees, Biggie, Big L, Nas especially, stuff like Illmatic, and it was really, those were big albums for me. That was initially what really started getting me into hip hop. Wu-Tang, of course. Those were like the influences, and like predominantly sort of sample based rather than electronic synth based hip hop was what I'd say my influences are. When did I first acquire my first item? It was Fruityloops. As I mentioned before, it was when I was out in Bangladesh, and as soon as I got it back with me, there was no like operation manual or anything to that effect. I just had to learn the ropes by myself, so it was YouTube tutorials and so on that got me the skills to start working with it, and yeah, just went from there. How steep did I find the learning curve? The first beat that I made took me no more than an hour. It was a very basic beat. There wasn't much going on with it, but I was quite happy with what I'd created, given that I hadn't had any education prior to that. And in terms of how steep the learning curve was, not so bad. I was able to adopt what I'd been sort of watching on tutorials and just effectively do it on the software itself. Didn't take me long to grasp how to cut samples on there and add filters. I think the more I was learning and accumulating, the more driven I was, and it sort of became a bit of an obsession to create something on Fruity. So how long has it taken me to master Fruityloops? I'm still learning. I think with what I do on a production site, production scale, there's always new ideas that come about. A sample can make me think about composition totally differently. So the learning is just constant. There might be a plugin that I might want to use that I've never used before. There's always something new to it. I don't own the exact cracked version of Fruityloops that I got about 12 years ago, but I've got a version of Fruityloops that I still use to this day. Still happy. It's still giving me the results that I've wanted, if not better. And I feel it was the right piece of gear to get me started. Definitely. It's one of the simpler music platforms to get started on. Yeah, definitely. So, I've been quite Fruityloops loyal for the best part of 10, 12 years, but ever since shit's hit the fan with the music, and I've started, working with people that I've been listening to, you know, in the scene, I've taken it upon myself to start learning a bit more. So I've enrolled myself in a course in Shoreditch. Big up Colin Crossbow, my tutor, who's been teaching me the ropes of music production. You know, I'm learning stuff on Logic, Ableton Live, Cubase. You know, I'm steadily like getting to grips with them more. What else am I using at the moment? I've just recently copped an MPC 1000. The only drawback with it at the moment is the plug wasn't sent to me by the eBay user, so still waiting on that. Apparently I can use something else that I've just found out about, so I'll give it a go. But yeah, I think going forward I definitely want to be doing stuff on Logic, marrying that with the MPC as well. That's definitely the two things I want to, like, you know, master or attempt to master in 2003. Over the years, it's just been fruity, to be fair. I mean, I think it was just a matter of comfort, that I was just happy to use just that software for X amount of years. There was a point in my short-lived music career where it was like 2007, from 2007 to 2013, I wasn't really doing much with music. You know, there was a lot going on at the time, and then I revisited music again after the passing of my dad, for means of therapy, I guess. And that's when I picked up Fruity again. So the music journey was sort of, it stopped for a bit, and then I've only recently just jumped back in. Does one prefer hardware or software? I don't have a preference. I mean, I actually, to be fair, I guess software. I think for means of convenience is what I've been using over the past few years. But there's more of a want to, like, you know, do a live set somewhere, and I need hardware for that. So I thought, you know, let's see if I can do something with an MPC. I don't know what my work rate's going to be like, you know, if I compare hardware to software, if I'm going to be more productive with hardware. What I know now is that with software currently, I'm banging out 2 or 3 beats a week on a good week. So we'll see what happens. Favorite brand? It may sound cliched, and I know I haven't used it properly yet, but it has to be the MPC. It's the musical equipment most synonymous with classical hip hop, should I say? You know, all the greats have used them. All my, you know, favorite producers from the past have used it. You know, likes of Premier, Pete Rock, Kanye when he was good. That might sound a bit, you know, but when he was like more sample based and doing stuff. What would one recommend to a beginner, music equipment wise? I'd probably say, again, Fruityloops. It was what I started off with. It's what I found quite easy to use. If you think that Fruity is a bit simple, maybe go for something like Logic. From a hardware perspective, I've dabbled with an MPK before, so if you're not looking to invest, as you know, that much money on a hardware piece of software, I think I grabbed that for about 60-70 quid. So yeah, that for a good start off point. Definitely. Why did I choose software over hardware? I think convenience. Again, I thought, you know, hardware was something that I was looking to maybe bring into my game when I was, you know, performing. Like if I was doing a live set somewhere, I'd be using that. So yeah, there's always been a preference for software. My views on sampling. Well, I love finding gems from like the 60s and 70s. Not so much the 80s, because I'm not really a fan of sort of like the electric, like the synths and so on. I'm more a fan of the instruments. So I love sampling from, like, you know, I love like jazz, funk, rock, like more on a sort of psychedelic vibe where, you know, guys were experimenting with drugs and getting all creative and what have you. I like sort of grabbing samples from countries like Japan, Russia, Italy. Speaking of Italy, like I'm a fan of like people that have created like theme tunes for like spaghetti westerns, like Ennio Morricone, for example. Which genre do I feel I sample the most and why? I definitely have to say jazz. I think just across like you know the 60s and 70s especially, and just like all these obscure countries that I seem to be finding tracks from that's just so emotive. I just love that sort of vintage vibe. I've always sort of looked there. There's never been like a specific preference, like I'm gonna go out there and look for you know a specific genre from a specific period, but when the gems essentially come from those sort of places, you sort of gravitate to those places. I don't have any qualms with sharing samples with anyone. In fact, like there's a few Facebook groups that I go on where it's sort of like they tell you that it's a sort of prerequisite to attach the sample that your beats that's what your beats based on. So at the end of the day, you know, I could do something with a sample, somebody else could use a different section of the sample and totally flip it on itself. You know, that being said, I've always been one to like try and search for, because I'm an e-digger predominantly. I'm always looking at trying to find samples that have got like the least amount of views, because I'd rather get a compliment from somebody saying like, you know, that's a dope beat, man, sick sample, rather than, I've heard that sample before, but you've done something really sick with it. How does one acquire their samples? Predominantly, it's been e-digging. You know, now that I'm taking it a lot seriously, lot more seriously, I'd definitely like to do more vinyl sampling. I've got like a small collection, but I think the difference between e-digging and vinyl digging is like, you know, you with vinyl digging you can go through droves and droves of vinyls and find that gem, and that fulfillment you get from that, rather than you're going through tons of MP3s on a channel that has been made for you. I think the fulfillment from vinyl digging is better, but I'm predominantly doing e-digging for now. So that's something I'd like to progress to do more. So favourite sampler, again, it has to be the MPC for me. You know, I have dabbled with it. It's come to a point where I've bought one myself. All the greats have used them. You know, the greats in my eyes from hip hop. You know, the MPC 2000 XL for me is a big one. Like recently, I've been watching a lot of videos from Damu the Fudge Monk, who absolutely loves using the MPC 2000 XL. He's got shelves and shelves of floppy disks and so on that he's just got tons of bits and pieces of. Favourite software, I'm going to remain loyal to my roots and say Fruity. When you've got the winning formula, so to speak, why really try to change it? I know I'm looking at other softwares, but unless something really clicks on something else, I'll just be happy to stay with Fruity and keep going on that. Okay. What do I think is more essential when crafting a joint, drums or samples? I think it varies really. I mean, if I find a dope drum break, I mean, I will base my sample cutting or composition around that. But on the flip side, if I hear a sample that is totally killer, I will just work predominantly on, you know, formulating that and adding layers to that, and then finally adding a break to it. In terms of MPCs currently, I mean, I've seen a lot of US and UK heads use the MPC 1000. I've spoken to people when they've recommended that I could use it. Obviously, it's not quite the MPC 2000 XL, which I would say is the best in terms of golden era, but nevertheless, it's a good starting point. From golden era perspective, it has to be the MPC 2000 XL without a shadow of a doubt. My two favourite instruments are, I'd probably say the violin, and I'd probably say the acoustic guitar as well. I seem to be sampling them a shitload. I've always had an affinity for them. The violin, because I used to play the violin when I was a youth. I was literally about 7 or 8. It was one of those things where, you know, when you know, when you want to be playing with your toys or playing with your friends and your rents are just getting you to practice on the violin, I got a bit disenchanted and sort of left it. Hindsight's a bitch, because you know, if I had maybe progressed to like grade 8 or something, and I could have maybe brought that into my production somehow, but everything happens for a reason. I'm looking to, I've got a guitar, I've just got to get my finger out and learn how to use it. If I could learn to play any musical instruments, yeah, definitely the guitar. I'm alright on the piano. I taught myself how to play that to an extent, but I would like to sort of maybe work more on my chord work. Anything else? Nah, I mean, if I wanted to bring something into my music, maybe I might try the trumpet or something. I like the vibe of that. It's not something that I would pick up otherwise, but yeah. If I had the choice of 2 producers to have, to work with, yeah, I mean, definitely in my top 3, I have like Premier and Pete Rock, so they would probably be the 2 that I'd love to work with. Legends in their own rights. For me, they definitely brought jazz, at least for me, more into like the forefront of hip hop. I started listening to a lot more jazz after listening to their tracks. That being said, I don't know what would happen to like a Primo or a Pete Rock joint if it got tainted with a bit of Valiant, but yeah, we'll see. That would be interesting. Alright, so if I was to pick 2 MCs, I'm going to pick one from the UK scene, I'm going to pick one from the US scene. Let's start with the US scene. As cliched as it might sound, Biggie for me, the best lyricist there ever was. You know, Ready to Die, not only from a production perspective, but from a lyrical perspective. I could bump that for the whole day and never get bored. I do that. So yeah. In number 2 from the UK, I'd have to say Jest. I remember when I was searching, especially online when I was younger, for UK hip hop on like platforms like Napster. And by searching for UK hip hop, his name was one of the first that came up. When I started listening to I think it was a Premonitions EP and Return of the Drifter, 2 very solid albums. I think those 2 really brought an attitude towards UK hip hop as something that, you know, to the non-believers at least, that, you know, hip hop was a bit more like poetic. And again, with someone like Jest, he matures like a fine wine. I'd love to work with him today if I get an opportunity. Top 3 producers and why. Now, I've already mentioned Pete Rock and Primo. Primo predominantly has to be my number 1. The amount of bangers that he's created with the likes of Nas, Biggie, Big L, the stuff that he's done he did with Guru and as the Gangstar Collective. Yeah, man. Phenomenal producer. Like, it's good to see that he's now branching to these waters as well. He's done a track with the 4 Hours recently called Think Twice. It's a banger. Have a listen to it. Yeah, it's sick. Pete Rock again. I've heard him from way back when, and as I was mentioning before, the fact that he brought jazz for me, like, you know, he brought that jazz sound into hip hop. It made me, you know, listen to jazz a lot more. Number 3, this might be a shock for some people. I don't know if people would include him in their top 3, but Stoupe from Jedi Mind Tricks. I think he's a dope producer. The first time I heard of Jedi Mind Tricks was the album Violent by Design. It was good for me because it brought me into that genre of hip hop where, you know, people were like talking about conspiracy theories and science fiction, and it opened that up for me. And I thought the production, like every sample that I found he used was a gem. It's good to see. Like, I know he had a break from Jedi Mind Tricks for a little bit, but I think for the latest album he's come back, so it'll be good to hear some new material from him. Besides the people that I've already spoken about, the people that I'm feeling right now, I'm listening to quite a bit of Joey Badass. I like what the whole Pro Era Collective have been doing. You know, in the past, there's like echoes of the old school there. And I think his flow's dope. His latest album, Before the Yes, is alright. I say it's alright in the sense that there's a lot of genres going on in that, and I'm worried if he's becoming a bit more commercially driven. But nevertheless, what I've been hearing from him so far has been sick. There is a primo joint on there, so every club. Also, I listen like in terms of like current people, I listen to Action Bronson quite a bit. I know there are some haters out there that think he's the white Ghostface and whatnot, but I just think his satire is just jokes. He can be talking about prostitutes 1 minute and talking about a leg of lamb the other. So, and from a performance perspective as well, I've seen him in concert. The guy is crazy. In the UK scene, who am I listening to? I've always been listening to a lot of Triple Darkness. Like, you know, more recently, it's good to see that Tesla's coming out with something, I think with Sinister Stricken it is, and Ray Vendetta's work rate is just incredible. He's just pumping out things all the time. I think he's got something with Cyrus Malachi called Cold Fusion. I think that's coming out soon as well. I'm looking forward to that. I'll always listen to the TD Collective quite a bit. Also, Street Souls, Mike Cajero, the guy for me who was like the catalyst to my hip hop journey. There we go. Do a little plug. Mic Check. It's out now. Grab that. There's a few beats from me on that. Big Cakes, Logic, Stinkin Slumrok, SonnyJim. Yeah, listening. Actually, been focusing on a lot more UK people of late. Revisited some old heads like LA the Dark Man. Been listening to a bit of him of late as well, which has been interesting. But yeah. Alright, so I'm gonna go through one of projects that I've been working on recently. Beat I made last week. Usually when I load up samples on Fruityloops, I use the Slice X module on there. It's what I felt comfortable using. I've tried using other things like FL Keys. Hasn't really done the job for me in terms of really cutting in a sample and getting those chops at the perfect times. So I'll start by playing you the sample. Tell me what you think. Good thing about Slice X is that once you load up a sample, you can see the waveform in its entirety. You're able to drop in markers as and when you want, which is what I've done here, as you can see. So once I'm happy with all the markers and stuff, where I've put them, that's when I start having fun and playing about with the sample itself. So, you know, I can just play them on my keyboard like so. Everything's on there. It's all loaded up on there. And it's just about, yeah, just finding the sound. Doesn't necessarily have to, you know, remain on par with what's happening in the track. I like to chop. The more chops I can do and the more rearranging I can do to create my own sound, the more I feel I've done with a sample. So this is what I've done with that sample. It sounds completely different. Once I've done that, if I really, as you can hear from that, it's not too bassy. So what I like to do is I like to clone the channel in its entirety and then add some filters to it. So in the case of this sample, for example, once I've cloned it and once I've added some filters in, oh, it's not that one, it's this one then. really nice warm bass coming out. Once I complement that with the sample, the original version, it just sounds a lot warmer. So once I've got a melody and I'm happy with that, you know, I'll change it up in little bits and pieces, depending on how varied I want to get with it, and then I'll move on to the drums. So I've either got kits on Fruityloops that I use, or I've got sample drums that I like to cut up as well. So in this instance, yeah, here's where I was sampling from. Again, is the same in the same fashion of the samples. I've done the same for the drums. Chop them up and made them sound like this. What I've managed to get from the drum sample as well is like the crackling of the vinyl, and I've actually used it as part of the percussion. Once I'm happy with all of that, which I was in this case, bam, you put both of them together. And you have a beat. Let's show you another beat, a beat that I've made for Dark Side of the Moon. Not ready for them. Big Click that I'm proud to be an affiliate of as well. Here's the sample that I'm dropping for that track in its original form. Again, it's on a Slice X module as well. Same format as I've done before. Placing markers where I want the sample to get chopped, basically. Alright, so once I'm happy with the cuts, I go about doing it in the same way. So I go into my step sequencer, bam, jump on the piano roll where the sample is. Again, everything's all loaded up on there. And I start rearranging, and this is what happens. Another section. I wanted to add some bass to this, so I just got a basic oscillator sound from Fruity, and I added it to it. You can't really hear it as much, but if I just, there you go. Really basic, but it adds so much to it. Once I'm happy with all of that, that's when I go onto my drums. Now I need to just check and see what pattern that's on. So on pattern 2. Right. So with this, I got some boombap loops I found on the internet. And with this, I think I put some filters on so I could get a different sort of sound, and then I added stuff to it. That's what I sampled. And once I put some filters in, slowed it down a little bit, it came out like this. I thought, okay, I've got to add some kicks to it, so I did that. Still needed something there, so bang some snares in there. And then just a few other bits of percussion as well, just to flesh the drums out. Once I'm happy with that, put it all together, and lo and behold, final beat showcase, I'm choosing one of my personal favourites. Yeah, so let's start by playing the sample. I mean, this is like a perfect example of a type of sample I really like, getting something without any drums, something very melodic, sudden change ups as well. It's really dramatic, this, I loved it. So once I'm happy with all of that, again, I've arranged it as I've wanted it. This time around I haven't really sort of flipped and changed it. I've gone with the sort of, you know, the way, you know, it sounds. But when you hear it, you understand how it sounds a bit different. Yeah, just the drums. I'll get to them. I got some interesting breaks from a DJ Premier album. Something just, it had like a whole load of old school beats and loops. I'll play the sample. That's what I used. Once I was happy with the cuts, bam. And it's as simple as that. Once I was happy with the drums and the cuts, I went ahead and did this. I really like to dress it up and say there's a lot more involved in what I do, but it's as simple as this. I particularly like this beat because I think it's as close to a primo sounding beat as I've got so far. It's definitely the sort of route I want to go down with my beats. This kind of vibe, definitely. Change ups coming in. I think I'm going to cut out the drums. I'll bring it back in again. There's a change up here. This is for the hook. I'll bring the sample from the start back in again. To verse 2, and there we have it. I'm just going to showcase another beat. This is my most recent beat. I've been blessed to have got Jest on this and SonnyJim, so I'm just going to go through it with you right now. We'll start first and foremost with the drum loop that I got. It's a drum loop that probably a lot of you guys might be familiar with as producers. I've never used it before, so I thought I'd drop it on this project. And this is essentially where the beat sort of stemmed from. So I'll play that to you first. That's what it is there. Off the back of that, you know, that was the start of things, and then I thought, you know what, I need to get a sample that's kind of dirty and a bit grimy, something that would complement it in the right sort of way. I was lucky to have found something that literally just fit like a glove. This is the sample. Now, I wasn't too keen on the volumes at the time, like, you know, there wasn't a lot of bass, you know, emanating from it. So I applied a few filters to the cuts that I liked. Well, firstly, I arranged them in the sort of way that I was feeling. So let's go through that. So let's go through this first bit here. So I've applied a filter to just enhance the bass on there. I then cloned that and applied some different filters to it as well. When you put the two together, it just sounded a lot more equalized, if that's a phrase. I wanted to change things up a little bit as well, like sort of keeping the same sort of vibe going, but sort of changing it up in a way. Let's have a look and see where that is. So I'm just playing about with a sample. Is there anything else there that I did? Let me just see. Yeah, again. So when I was happy with all the alternate sort of ways I could flip the sample, I put it all together. I got an intro. I'll play the intro as well because I've taken a sample from Snatch, from the Bricktop character. I thought a lot of his lines were jokes, and I thought it'd fit in really well with this. I'll just play you through the whole beat right now, so you can have a listen.
You're on thin fucking ice, my pedigree chums, and I shall be under it when it breaks.
Love how it all comes together like this, man. The fact that it's not too repetitive makes it even more of a storytelling beat. Hopefully the verses that are going to be blessed on this are going to show that. On to the next one. Really cool sample. I basically in this instance, I worked with the sample first before, you know, complementing it with the drums. So I'll play the pattern. But let's play the sample first. Let's play the sample first because it sounds a lot different to what it ends up sounding like. Let's go from here. It's actually from one of my favourite composers, Gabo Sabo. It's the Love theme from Spartacus, so it's an old one. As you can see here, in the Slice X plugin, Fruityloops, as I always do, make my cuts. Okay, now let's show you what I ended up doing with it. So I sped it up slightly, cut it up where I wanted to, and rearranged it, made it sound like this. So that's the first pattern. Alright, let's go to the drums now. So I don't think I cut up the drums on this joint too much. I was pretty happy with where they were at. Let's just go from here, play the some cuts there, and here's the drum loop that I created. I did like a kick, some hi-hats in there as well. Oh no hi-hats, just the kicks and snares to complement the drum loop sample, and this is what came about, and that's it. Let's put it all together and play you what I ended up with. Quite a simple and effective beat in the sense that it was just literally the sample, the main sample, and the drum loop. And I think I applied some plugins to this as well. Let's just check. It's just the one, if it lets me do what I need to do. There we go. It's just a fruity reverb, and then also the fruity parametric EQ. Just brought the bass up a bit more, just played about with like the treble as well, and the low mid, just to make it sound a bit warmer. And there we go, it's the beat. I'm just going to go through with you now a composition of mine, how I go about making a beat. This is essentially my studio here, my home setup. I've got Fruityloops on my laptop. It's what I swear by, it's what I always use. In terms of my studio speakers, I've got my Rocket 5s. I've got a Focusrite interface here that seems to do the job nicely. And yeah, so I'm going to go through this one project that I got given to me by my DSOTM brothers, Dark Side of the Moon. They told me to do a reflip of a Wu-Tang track called Hollow Bones. I got the sample, and obviously I had an idea of what it sort of sounded like initially, but I wanted to change it up and make it sound fresh and a bit different. So what I do normally in most instances is, you know, play about with a sample first and see what I can come up with, and then add layers to it, etc. So what I use normally to cut my samples is the SliceX plugin on Fruityloops. I'm sure there's a lot of other plugins out there that kind of do the same thing, but this is what I'm most comfortable with. So I'll play you a part of the joint, the sample first, so you get an idea of what it kind of sounds like. Let's start it from about here. Shades of my skin, only add color to my tears. Oh, that splash against any change ups in the sample, any bits that I like, immediately I'm dropping a cut in there. Always putting markers in as and when I like the sound. Obviously the tempo of the track is kind of hip hop in a sense if you wanted to go on a double time sort of vibe with it. But I wanted to speed that up as well, which is what I ended up doing. So I'll show you the cuts that I did for this. Let's see how it sounds a lot different to the original. Let's go from here. One bit. I couldn't just leave it on just that solely. I had to obviously change it up. So here's another sort of similar way in which it's been organized, but I've changed it a little bit just to keep it fresh and tasty. So yeah, I basically played around with the sample a lot more, so there was a lot more variations of that. Once I was happy with that, I wanted to do a bit more with the percussion, so to speak, because the kicks aren't hitting as hard as I wanted them to. Same with the snares as well. So quite a basic drum loop that I created, so I didn't source a sample for this one. In some cases I do that if it seems to work with the with the original sample that I'm working with. If not, I'll just make a drum loop from scratch. And in this case, I've done that. So I'll play that to you now. Quite simple, but when it all comes together, as you'll hear shortly, sounds alright. Alright. Let's just play the joint from the start. To try and remain faithful to like the Wu-Tang kind of sound as well, but at the same time, try and give my little Valiant take on it as well. This is what came about. And coming up, there's a little break where I sort of bring back the original sample and get more of the vocals going on it. Yeah, we'll listen to that shortly. It's coming up.
That splash against my hollow bones. That splash against my hollow bones.
Building up for the next verse. Bam. In the case of this project, I didn't really use a lot of plugins. Sometimes I will in order to just enhance them, if anything, reverb plugins and whatnot. But I was happy with the sound. Everyone that was involved in the project was happy with it as well. The Dark Side of the Moon heads really felt it, so I left it at that really. There you have it. Here's my beat.